Hello. So I wanted to take some time and talk about food for dogs and cats. I'm going to focus on dogs for this recording, but that's really simply because I have some really good examples of before and after with my dogs. But our cat food is equally as amazing, and my cats eat that as well. But what I'd like to do is share my screen with you, and I want to talk about the food we feed today, how much of it, the food we used to feed, how much of that, and the differences around it. So let me share my screen. So what you're seeing right now is actually on the Pottery page, and this is under About Us and Why Pottery. So if you want to look at this a bit further, please feel free to go to the website and take a look. But one of the things that I 100% appreciate about pottery is that real meat, poultry, or fish is always the first ingredient. Too many times we see a meal as the first ingredient, or even, God forbid, corn as the first ingredient. And it's really important. Our pets are carnivores. We need to give them that meat, which is really important. In addition, you will never see any poultry byproducts in any of our pottery food. No corn, no wheat, no soy. Those are what you might consider unhealthy grains. We do have healthy grains, and we also have grain-free, depending on your preference and also your pet. We have no artificial colors, flavors, or preservatives. You know, there used to be a time when I would not even have looked at the ingredients on the dog food bag to even notice if a red dye number 40 was in there, but it is. So it's important to know that our food does not have any of those. Everything was developed by our vets and nutritionalists, and everything is made here in the US, which is also a very big deal for me and very likely you as well. So one of the things that I would love for you to do is grab your food bag if you have one, or go to a website and look it up and tell me if meat is the very first ingredient on the food. And if so, which kind? I'd love to hear. But here's some of the other things that Pottery commits to. Customized nutrition plans, which I'm going to show you next. Everything is natural and holistic. We already said meat, poultry, or fish is the first ingredient. High quality protein. It's sourced in the US with exception of the wild caught salmon. And it's made here in the US, so you know that it is absolutely high quality. We have antioxidant rich to help formulas to help the immune system, prebiotics to support the healthy digestive tract, taurine for heart and eye health. If you are up to date on all of the concerns around grain-free, most of the time that the grain-free concerns are actually because they are not they do not have a high amount of taurine in them. And dogs that have a taurine deficiency almost always have heart problems. So we have added taurine into all of our recipes to reduce that chance. We have omega-3s and 6 fatty acids. That really is helpful for the skin and coat, but it is actually also really helpful for the joints and the heart. DHA for the brain. Everything is complete and balanced. It's actually reduced or formulated to reduce stool volume, if you can believe it. Less poop, which is kind of a big deal. It also has natural glucosamine, which is really important for joints. Calcium and phosphorus, also for bone and tooth health. And like I mentioned, everything is developed by our vets and nutritionists and made here in the US, which is really super important. So now I wanted to take you over to my pet profile. Just to, okay, I wanted to make sure it was sharing. And I'd like to show you what mine looks like. So I have Jovi, and I have Molly, I have Branch, and if I scroll down, I have Princess Poppy. Yes, Branch and Poppy are from the Trolls, if you didn't know or realize that. But here's what I'd like to show you. So Jovi, he's actually 2.5. He'll be 3 in February. He is a golden doodle. He's 65 pounds. And his feeding quantity is 1 3/4 cups per day, if you guys can see that. Now, if you have a large dog, 1 3/4 cups a day might actually seem low to you, right? But the amazing thing is how nutritionally dense our food is. So you feed less, there's less poop, and they are full faster. All of the nutrition is there. They're not going and lacking on the vitamins and minerals. They are getting as much as they need and not too much and not too little. That's one of the huge benefits of filling out the pet profile. I'll also show you Molly. Molly is an overweight beagle. She always is, but she's old. And actually, I have to update this because she is now 8 years old. And she could stand to continue losing weight. When I first filled this out, I put down that she was 25 pounds, and Pottery actually helped reduce us to 22 pounds, which is a big deal for her. But I was able to take that into consideration when I filled out her pet profile. So what it said is she's about a cup a day of food. And if I go in and update that to, let's just real quick, I'm going to show you what happens. If I edit the profile, so she is now 8 years old and she is still overweight, but she is now 22 pounds. So if we update that, I'm going to put, yes, fetch results. And we're going to go back one more screen just so you can see if the updated quantity is up there. So she is still 1 cup a day, which is exactly why it's so important to do the pet profile. You can adjust the weight, you can adjust the age, you can adjust if they have any sort of new symptoms like bad joints or teeth or something like that, and all of the suggestions will be there. So now what I'm feeding them is a combination of our duck and turkey recipe. And the reason that I'm feeding duck and turkey is because those are considered cooling proteins. There are warming proteins, neutral proteins, and cooling proteins. And what I have learned is that chicken is your hottest protein. Salmon is more neutral, beef is more neutral. Lamb is very hot as well. When you have a hot or warm protein and you have a dog with any sort of concerns, Molly has a bad back and a lot of joint problems. Jovi has a lot of anxiety and skin problems. Adding in a hot protein to those dogs is going to increase the inflammation in the body. So anytime that I'm talking to a customer or a prospect that has a concern about one of their dogs or their cats, I'm always going to suggest a cooling protein. So they are on a blend of 1 bag of duck and 1 bag of turkey every single month. The reason I mix them up is because Jovi's my picky one, and I always have to add the seasonings no matter what. He's just a picky guy, and that is perfectly okay. So I always like to change it up on them and make sure that the flavor is a little bit different. But so now I kind of went off on a tangent about what food I'm feeding them. One thing that you heard me say is I get 1 bag of duck and 1 bag of turkey a month. That is 20 pounds of food. So for 2 dogs, 65 pounds and 22 pounds, I'm going through 20 pounds of food a month. Before Pottery, I actually was going through between 30 and 40 pounds of food a month. And I actually have up on my screen a couple examples. I went to my Chewy account and pulled up 2 foods that I used to feed. So the first one that I'd like to show you is Purina One Smart Blend. I did salmon, and the reason I did salmon is because I wanted to try to do a healthy coat. I also really liked that they had real salmon in ingredient, and they had actual meaty morsels within inside of there. And the front of their bag says no poultry byproduct, artificial flavors, or preservatives. So I was trying to go as all natural as possible. You can see under their nutritional information, salmon, a real meat, is their very first meal, very first ingredient, which is great. Chicken meal, that is one thing that we do not have because it's a byproduct. But here's what I really would like to show to you. Whole grain corn, corn gluten meal, corn germ meal, soy flakes. All of these are adding bulk and are more of your unhealthy grains, which at the time I did not realize. I was really drawn in by no artificial flavors or colors and real meat and all of that, which is great. But this not, you want to try to stay away from your corn, your soy, your corn, wheat, and soy with inside of that. So, but here's really why I wanted to show this to you, because if you're feeding this food, this is not that bad. Meat is the first ingredient. You have fish oil in there. You have your vitamin A, your B12. This is not that bad of a food. But let's look at the feeding instructions. So I mentioned that Jovi is 65 pounds and he's getting 1 and 3/4 cup of food a day. This food he would have to get between 3 1/4 and 4 1/3. So it's probably like 3 3/4 being 65 pounds. So I've literally cut his food in half. So even though the per bag price might be a little bit cheaper, I'm feeding less and it's higher quality, which means I'm not paying more as it nets out. Molly, 21 to 35 pounds, 1 3/4 cup to 2 2/3, and I'm at just under 1 actually what I'm feeding her. So again, I'm saving on how much food she gets as well. So that was one food. The other food I wanted to share with you that we did was Taste of the Wild. This is a good brand. It's grain-free, wild high prairie. I noticed that it had bison and venison, which is typically something that you're not allergic to as much, and I thought that that would be a really good quality meat inside of it. I also was on the grain-free and wanted to make sure that I was not doing that corn, wheat, and soy type thing. So the nutritional information, buffalo, first meat is, and it's not a meal, which is great. But then we have lamb meal, chicken meal next to it. And if you remember earlier, that lamb meal is a hot, chicken meal is a hot protein. And then we have sweet potatoes, peas, potatoes. We have a lot of actually really good things inside of this. One of the great things with grain-free is they added the taurine inside of it. You see fruits and vegetables inside of this. You also see some probiotics and prebiotics. So this is not a bad food at all. If this is what you're feeding, kudos, because this is not a bad food. But let's look at the feeding instructions one more time. So 60 to 80 pounds, Jovi 65, 3 to 3 3/4 food. And again, I'm doing 1 3/4 food. So again, double the amount that I would have to give him per day. Molly's 22 pounds and she's 1.5 to 2 cups, and I feed her just under 1 cup. So again, a higher amount every time you feed. So just because it's a good food does not necessarily mean that you are going to be feeding less. It also doesn't necessarily mean that it's cheaper in the long run, because you will actually be saving money when you feed less with the poultry food. So just I know that this video went a little bit longer than I was expecting, but I wanted to just show you some of those examples and let you sit on just the overall knowledge that sometimes the price on a food bag is not the actual price. All right, have a great day.